Welcome back to Melbourne, Australia. I'm Scott Jagow, coming to you for the first time from Flemington Racecourse, home of the Victoria Derby on Saturday, and then of course the race that stops the nation in about a week's time. It's going to be difficult for me to convey the beauty and the massive size of this racecourse on video, but I'll do the best that I can. The racecourse is just enormous. It's almost a city unto itself. You can hardly see from one end of this place to the other with the naked eye. And it's staggering to think about the amount of manpower and hours and expense that must go into preparing for these upcoming events where 100,000 people will come to watch the races. Just strolling the grounds today, you could see workers getting ready, putting in more plants and flowers, in addition to the thousands of beautiful beds that are already installed. And then, of course, there are the temporary chalets, which some of them look like beach houses. They're just absolutely stunning, sponsored by world-renowned companies. So much work going into it. Here are just some of the sights and sounds I saw today. Now let's get to the racing that's coming up in a few days' time. I spoke with Greg Carpenter, who's an executive and a renowned handicapper with Racing Victoria, about what we can expect in the Melbourne Cup and the Derby, who to look out for. Plus, I asked him to put Winx's smashing performance in the Cox Plate in some perspective, and to talk about what it really means for a race to stop the nation.
Well, let's talk about Derby Day first. That's our classic 3-year-old race here in Victoria over a mile and a half, actually run over 2,500 metres. One of the nuances of the Flemington racetrack is that the mile and a half start is quite close to the first turn, so it's a 2,500 metre race. We've had some outstanding results with Derby winners in the last few years. Preferment, who won it 2 years ago, has won 4 Group 1s. Tarzino, who won it last year, went on and won the Rosehill Guineas in the autumn, in the fall. So it's going to be a big field. There's lots of people supporting staying breeding in Australia. Probably the favourite goes into the race is a horse called Sacred Elixir. He's a horse from New Zealand who was a Group 1 winner over a mile as a 2-year-old horse. And he was very impressive in winning a 1.25 mile Group 2 race at Moonee Valley on Saturday. So he'll back up quickly. He'll run 7 days after that last win. But I think he's a really good winning chance in the race. And I'd have to say, being at Moonee Valley on Saturday, I've never heard so many Australians cheering for the United States. We had a horse called the United States win a Group 2 mile race, and the crowd really erupted when he hit the front because he was favourite.
Speaking of the crowd erupting, Winx's performance was sensational. How do you put that into perspective as we go forward?
Well, it was probably one of the greatest performances ever produced by a female equine athlete. In the modern era, right around the world, the benchmark performance by mares comes from an Australian mare called Black Caviar. She produced a figure of 132 when she won the Newmarket here over a sprint trip of 6 furlongs 4 or 5 years ago. No doubt Winx has produced a performance of 130 or better on Saturday, demolishing that field by 8 lengths. So it puts her behind California Chrome. He's currently sitting on top of the world rankings on 133. But it will take her to probably the second highest ranked performance in the world this year. And again, for American viewers, it takes her past performances like Zenyatta and Rachel Alexander, who are in the high 120s, all champion mares, but there's no doubt Winx's performance, I hadn't seen one better here in Australia.
Now about the Melbourne Cup, 24-horse field. Who should we be zeroing in on as we get closer to the race?
Well, there's probably 2 form lines that you should be looking at. One is the Caulfield Cup. It's a Group 1 race over a mile and a half where they go forward to the Melbourne Cup 17 days later. That was won by a beautiful 4-year-old mare called Jamaica. She won the Victoria Oaks last year over 2,500 metres. and she's come back as a champion 4-year-old mare. She won that 1.5-mile race by 3 lengths. She beat an English horse called Scottish from the Godolphin stable, and another English horse called Exospheric. There's an American link, of course, with Jamaica being the middle name of Serena Williams. So they tried to name the horse Serena. They weren't successful with that, so they named it Jamaica instead, which is one of Serena's given names. And she is just a magnificent athlete.
I'm here to share the experience of Australian racing with Americans. So can you put it in perspective what it actually means in practice, the phrase the race that stops a nation? What is it? What does that really mean?
Well, what it does mean is right around Australia, every school, every shop, everywhere around Australia will actually stop at 3 o'clock next Tuesday. If you're in a school or if you're in a workplace, commerce will come to a halt. People will have the television on and they will actually watch the race. When troops went overseas into foreign war zones, right back in the early 1900s, 1914, when they went to the Middle East, everyone was aware of the Melbourne Cup and everyone stopped to listen and hinge on the result, and virtually everyone bets on the winner, or trying to back the winner of the Melbourne Cup. And a lot of people frame their history of the Melbourne Cup around where was I the year that Media Puzzle won, where was I the year that Far Lap won. So it's a race that's been won by all our great racers. The last 20 years it's now become a truly international race. We'll have at least 10 internationally trained horses in the event. Last year we had 11. So it's now a race that has got international appeal and interest, but certainly not only in Australia, but in Australia and New Zealand, it is an iconic sporting event. It's like the Super Bowl. People will get around the television right around Australia and New Zealand. They'll have some drinks, they'll have a bet, and they'll try and pick the winner of the Melbourne Cup.
All right, Greg, here's your chance. Pick the winner of the Melbourne Cup.
Well, for me, it's Jamaica. Her Caulfield Cup win was really, really good. I also like the form lines from Winklow Brave and also Heartbreak City, the 2 Irish trained horses in the race. So there's going to be a lot of winning chances, but for me, I think Jamaica can do the Grand Slam and win the Caulfield Cup and the Melbourne Cup.
And don't forget, you can wager on the Melbourne Cup. It's available in the United States through one of many ADW websites. So take advantage of that opportunity. More coverage to come, but that's going to do it for now from Melbourne, Australia. Thanks for joining me, and we'll talk to you soon.